This Habs draft pick could end up being way better than we thought, as Mikus Vecvanags, the 5th round goalie pick, has some shocking parallels to a playoff star goalie this year in the NHL. We're going to get into all of that. Plus, Jacob Fowler had some quotes on himself and his future with the organization, and how he compares maybe to Jakub Dobes moving forward. We're going to cover all of that coming up on this episode of Habs Digest. You're not going to want to miss it. But before we get into the video, I want to ask you guys for likes. Whatever we ask, you guys do amazing. So if we could hit, Jesse, we said 800 last time. Let's say 900 likes. I know it's a crazy number, but we've been able to hit it before. We'll be able to do it again. If you guys want to help us with that goal, hit the like down below. Thank you so much. And we're going to start with Jacob Fowler, and he is basically unstoppable, Jesse. Jacob Fowler is such a phenomenal prospect. He's made his way into some people's top 5, even top 3 lists for goalie prospects in the NHL. He has been so good, but now that we're in the development camp, he's getting talked to. He's doing some pressers and stuff, and Stu Cowan had a great article about him as well, where I took some of these quotes, so go check that out in the Montreal Gazette. But I wanted to show this thing first. He was talking about his development and some of his philosophy moving forward as he was younger. He said, we weren't just going to go play in a tournament, talking about how when he was a kid in Florida, you had to make everything mean something when you travel for a tournament. We weren't going to just play. We were going to get our money's worth, and we were going to win every event. That mindset stuck with me at every level I've gone up. People want winners, whether it's in life or in hockey. The guy who wins the most obviously gets sometimes the most opportunities. I love this quote, Jesse, and that's the thing. That's what the Habs brass said when they were fighting to draft him. He just wins at every single level. He won with the Youngstown Phantoms. He had an insanely good year. Didn't quite get that win with Boston College. They lost in the final to Steve Boyum in Denver, but still, 926, 2.14, Jesse. Every single thing that comes out of Jacob Fowler's mouth is absolutely unbelievable. He looks good. He clocked in, I think, 6'2", almost 6'3" at this camp. I'm very excited to see what he does in this camp. But how do you feel about these quotes that he's saying and where this mentality comes from?
It's amazing to see, and I'm seeing it also as a common theme in this tournament, or rather during this player development camp, where Owen Beck, he was asked kind of like, what makes you different now coming a year, from last year to this camp? Since you've been drafted those 2 years, what's really kind of changed? And for him, he mentioned it was really like the mental game, what he does away from the ice to kind of prepare himself, everything else, right? So it seems like this is really important for a lot of these young Habs players. They're looking for those wins, which is so important, right? And the thing about Jacob Fowler, we all know he hates losing. In fact, he said, while he's being interviewed, it's like, he said like something like he's almost never get over, right? Like I almost feel bad about him about that. Just like, he thinks about it so much, but you know what? I almost feel like, Josh, could this be a blessing in disguise for the Montreal Canadiens? Because Jacob Fowler is a guy that's won at every level he's played at. He's just so competitive. That's the thing about him. But now getting to the final game, being named the best goalie in the NCAA, you get to that final game and then losing. It's haunting him right now. It's in his dreams, right now. So it's like, you have to feel, though, that's going to motivate him to get even better, right? This is a guy, he's not used to this, right? So he wants to get back to that winning feeling, and he's really putting a lot of hard work in this offseason to make that happen.
Well, I don't even think it's a blessing in disguise. I think it's a blessing that swung open the saloon doors and just started shooting his revolver left and right. I think it's just straight up out there that this guy is going to be a winner no matter where he goes. As the Habs brass said, like, he's mastered his craft. He knows how to win. He knows where to be. He knows how to get things done in the game. Is he the biggest? Is he the most athletic? No, but he can absolutely win, and he won a lot. I'll just remind you guys again, look at that record, 32-6-1, the most wins in the NCAA. Like, this dude was absolutely unbelievable. But he does have some competition, Jesse. Now, of course, he's going to be heading back to the NCAA to Boston College, and we're going to hopefully see him in Laval maybe the year after, maybe the end of next year. We're not really sure what his plans are long-term yet, but he's going to have to fight a bit with Jakub Dobes. And I want to put your eyes on something specifically. Not only you, Jesse, but the fans as well. Take a look at Jakub Dobes' college. Now, at Ohio State, the Ohio State University in the Big Ten, you could argue the Big Ten's not quite as good as Hockey East, because Hockey East now has a lot of the top prospects, but it's still a great conference, right? Dobes had a 934 save percentage with a 226 GAA, and then followed up with a 918 and a 2.31. He was 6'5", and he struggled to start in the AHL, Jesse. Now, he had a phenomenal second half to the year, as we often talk about, but he's 23, and the college numbers are not that far off of Jacob Fowler either. when we look at Fowler, do you think that's a reason to temper your expectations, or is it maybe even a reason to get more excited for Dobes? And not just him, but like we talked about in another video with Quentin Miller, how there's this competition between all these goalies to fight to see who's going to come out on top. That kind of thing there is what excites me the most, because every single goalie in the Habs system, including Vecvanags that we're going to get into in a bit, like, they have a reason to really prove themselves. And this thing between Dobes and Fowler, I think that's going to be something we're going to be talking about for a long, long time.
Absolutely, and sometimes you kind of need to, lose a little bit to really win. We see it like with Stanley Cup winning teams, right? Where teams, they get to like that Stanley Cup final and they lose, and then just to be back next year, really win it when it matters, in the case of the Florida example, Panthers. But we see so many examples, like you need to kind of get there, attain that new plateau, whatever sport it is, lose, but then only to have that old experience that makes you so much stronger kind of going forward. So we know Jacob Fowler has all the attributes, has that star, that it factor, to him, right? So it's going to be really interesting to see as he progresses. But for him, he wants that number one spot, and he's not going to be happy with anything else.
No, that's for sure. And that's why I'm so excited for him. It's going to be really cool to see this battle. But it's not just them, Jesse. It's not just Quentin Miller, who we talked about in another video. It's not just Fowler. It's not just Dobes. And we even got the guy like Yevgeny Volokin, who we're going to have to track this year over in Russia as well. A guy that we are quite in love with as a prospect as well. But we got to move on to this guy. Oh, he is so sneaky good. Now, his name is, I believe it's Mikus Vecvanags. I couldn't find a clip of it. If there's any Latvians, please tell me if the pronunciation is correct. But he was picked in the 5th round, pick 134. I believe that's checked. Dobes was 136. So yeah, Vecvanags was 5th round, 134th. So very similar to Jakub Dobes. And here are his stats. Now, nothing jumps off the page. There's a lot to look at, but focus your attention in 23-24 as he was playing with Tukums in the Latvian second league, where he played 16 games with not a great goals against average. But Jesse, he managed to play 9 games with HS Riga in the Latvian main league at the World Junior Under-18s. He wasn't phenomenal, but his numbers in the Latvian league were quite good. And when you're 18, he's also 6'3", 160 pounds, so he's still very light. He's at the Habs development camp right now. So these numbers to you guys might not make a ton of sense. You're kind of like, okay, what's the big deal? Well, let me show you another page and take a look at 2018-19 for this player. HS Riga, same team, same league, 20 games, 3.26 GAA with a 914 save percentage. Very similar stats with not a great win-loss record, but very similar stats with 2 shutouts. But you might notice down lower that he played for Vancouver and Abbotsford, and this is none other than Arturs Shilovs, who was drafted in 2019 to Vancouver after that season with HS Riga. And as we saw this year, when Demko went down, he stepped up and was phenomenal for them in the playoffs. Now, while the numbers specifically might not jump off the page, if anyone watched that, Jesse, you know Shilovs was the one saving the games for them. His climb has been amazing, and to see Vecvanags kind of one of the only goalies I could really find coming from the Latvian league being drafted, like, the comparison there is really, really interesting. Like, I know Vecvanags had a much smaller sample size, played half the games, where Shilovs kind of spent that whole year there. I get it, but Vecvanags is still 6'3", he's 18, he has room to grow. I just thought this comparison was really interesting, and I think he's going to be a very cool guy to follow moving forward.
Yeah, following a very similar trajectory to, Shilovs, who was looking amazing for Vancouver as a backup, right? On many other teams, you almost think, like, could this guy kind of steal the spot and be a number one? Because for me, from the eye test, watching him a couple games, he looks like that. Obviously, He has a lot more to prove, but playing that well at that time of the year matters a lot, right? Just kind of being thrown into it like that. And you can see Vecvanags was actually drafted a round earlier than Shilovs, going the 5th round compared to Arthur Shilovs 6th, so it's obviously with goaltending, it's more of that longer term game than being a forward, than being a defenseman, but it's opportunistic as well. And that's why the Habs drafted so many goalies and continue to do so, because injuries happen. These opportunities come up. Arthur Shilovs was able to take that opportunity and run with it, which you need to go with as a goalie, because competition is just so fierce, right? But he's following a similar path, right? He's going to get that development that he needs, but he should have all the encouragement to know that if he sticks to it, that he can make some big things happen.
Yeah, and the thing is, he has a ton of time to put on some weight too now. You look at this guy, what if he grows an inch, and what if he puts on a bit of weight, right? What if he gains some muscle and he turns into 6'4", 190, right? And then you're like, okay, this is a completely different guy. Now, I'm not going to say he's going to gain 30 pounds in a month or anything, but you never really know. And again, he's very much a long shot to ever make the Habs or even to be an impact guy in Laval, but you spend these lower draft picks on guys that you study, that you watch, that you feel like are kind of the boomer bust kind of picks. There's a reason they picked Makar right at the end of the draft, right? Nick Bobrov's like, we watched this guy all year. He has all the skill in the world. A guy like this, I'm going to call him Mikey V because that's easier. If you guys want to talk about it, let's just say Mikey V. So that's just a nice, easier way to refer to him rather than Vecvanags. But I think he's going to be cool, Jesse. And with Latvia kind of jumping up now on the world stage, we're seeing a lot more Latvia fans. Of course, Elvis Merzlikins being a fantastic Latvian goalie. I think we're going to see this more, and I think that'll also serve as motivation for him. I think he could very well get a shot, at least to be like maybe a third guy on the Latvian national team, maybe behind Shilovs and Merzlikins. I don't know if there's another goalie prospect, but I think, his name is definitely going to be bigger and bigger in Latvia as the years go on. And, the Habs have fans from different countries all over the world, whether it's for Slav or Slovakia or so many other guys, right? I think that, this guy could become a fan favorite really quick if things go right.
Absolutely. He has the size, that's for sure, at 6'3". Needs to put on a little bit more weight to kind of compete with Fowler a little bit, but again, has lots of time for that, right? So Habs, we got to trust them. They've been doing an amazing job of selecting the right players to draft. We got to remember, Primeau was a very late draft pick as well, right? And he's now the backup goaltender on this team, right? So you do get good goalies from these rounds. We can't be quick to discount it whatsoever, so we're going to need to see what type of player we have, but he's going to have every opportunity with Montreal.
Yeah, for sure. And they're going to do whatever they can. Like, you want to do everything you can to make your draft picks worthwhile. That's why we're focused on development now. What do you guys think about Mikey V, this potential interesting goalie prospect over in Latvia? I think there could be some really big surprises over the next few years, Jesse. I think we're going to see some later round draft picks, maybe not hit more often than we've seen before, but I think we'll have a couple guys who we might just enjoy a little more than we first thought. But what do you think? Let us know down below about all these guys. We'd love to hear from you, because that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for helping us almost reach 13,000 subs. We really, really appreciate it. I'm Josh Gosse, my co-host Jesse Poirier. We'll catch you in the next one.